Let's talk about the steps now if we do choose to create a brand new company file. First, make sure that you print out all the reports. Of particular interest is going to be the balance sheet. We will need to re-input each one of these areas into our new set of books. As a follow-up, I would definitely recommend to print out your accounts receivable aging report in detail, also your vendors report in detail, and you will want to make sure that you have your employee reports. Make sure that you have your listing of all of your withholdings and all of your individual transactions per employee. When you're going to recreate these books, you will need to ensure that your setup for payroll is correct. My experience has been that the withholdings are very often removed. Now, when I go through the reports, I'm also going to make sure that I look at every area and think in terms of what will I need to set up my books. If, for instance, I'm going to be creating the new set of books halfway through the year, I will need to look at my profit and loss. I'll want to actually manually type in the entries for the preceding months. This will give me a comparison for the year. Now, if you'd like to have comparison for the previous years, you'll need to do the same thing. This, of course, can be very tedious. Perhaps you're just as happy as leaving the detail in your old books, and maybe you'll use Excel for comparisons. You need to think through how you're going to actually do your comparisons in the future. Now, once I've gone through my reports, I have all my data, I've set up my file, I'm ready to go. The first step is to actually export out all of our information. Now, keep in mind, when we are going to export, we are not taking data. We are simply taking lists. When I go into the list to an IIF file, I can now choose my detail. QuickBooks uses the extension of .iif for all of its exports and imports. Here's where I can choose each of the individual items that I want to bring in. If I do not use other names, keep it empty. Remember, you can always type in new employees, new vendors, new customers. This is your chance to clean up the file as much as possible. Also be aware that since you are bringing in these lists with no data, it'll be very, very easy to delete them out from your new set of books. So think through who should remain in your vendor list, who should remain in your customer list. Now, prior to actually bringing in these lists, you may want to consider running the cleanup or the condensing of your data. When you clean up your company data, it will remove all your obsolete transactions, but it also will delete your obsolete vendors, obsolete customers. By doing so, when we go to our reports and we run our listing of our actual customers, we won't have as many left over as we would if we did not run this condensing. The idea here is when you set a completely new set of books, you want it to be as pristine as possible. You want to clean up your old mistakes. You want to make sure that you have a new system in place. If you do not like what you're doing, for instance, with your classes, this would be the time to actually go to your class list, rethink it, and reestablish it. The same will hold true for each of the areas. You are in control of which list you want to bring in and how many of these items. So when creating a new file, it's important to remember that it is only the lists or the names that will be brought in. We will be manually inputting all of our data. As a result, think it through. For those of us with heavy transactions, we may find that an upgrade to Enterprise or an upgrade to Point of Sale is going to be of a great advantage.